Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Wendy Mitchell. I'm going to be your moderator today. We're delighted you're joining us for this webinar. I'll just start a bit slowly, so I know some people are still entering the room. It's really great to have you all joining us. As you know, this is a webinar presented by the Scandinavian Films group, which is all 5 of the Nordic film institutes. And they thought there would be some great knowledge to be sharing this week of the virtual Cannes. So, as you know, 2020 has been quite a strange year, hasn't it? There's been, this pandemic that has impacted everything about all of our lives, including film production, of course. And the Nordic region, some of these countries never fully locked down. Some have opened up much quicker and safer than some other parts of the world. And there are films and TV shows being shot across the region right now. And that seems like a very lucky place to be. So we wanted to talk to some of the experts who are shooting right now in the Nordics. We know this can be of interest to people who are looking how to restart production in other areas. So we've got a great panel assembled today. We're actually going to start with Aage Aaberge. As you can imagine, when you're shooting a film, it's quite hard to stop production and jump on a webinar in the middle of the film set. So Aage spoke to us the other day. He's on the set of Narvik, which is a big war drama that's being directed by Erik Stjolberg. And Aage is able to talk to us a little bit about the experience of how they've had to transition to restarting shooting the film. So let's play the video of Aage, and then after that, we'll come back and hear more from our live panelists. For me to hear that you're able to resume shooting for Narvik. And if I'm right, you started shooting on March 3rd, and then you had to pause. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We had to shut down on Friday, March 13, where we actually had planned to shoot the opening scene of the film with 60 extras, 10 actors, and a staff of almost 70 people. We had found a fantastic location, 2.5 hours north of Oslo, and made the arrangement with veteran boats and veteran cars, and everything was clear for shooting with snow and props, and I was very happy at that day.
Wow, and you've been able to now resume shooting, but you're not shooting that big scene, I guess, with the snow and the extras and everything.
No, we had been shooting for 7 days, and at the moment we had to shut down. Actually everything was working very properly, and yeah, we were happy. So we had approximately 10 weeks actually with the shutdown.
Okay. And what was it like to get things? How did you know it was going to be perfectly safe to get things started again?
Well, it's impossible to know actually, because this is an extremely situation. But we did a lot of things to secure the shooting. First, we had to wait from week to week if we could start up again, against the risk of one of our own getting infected, and we might have to shut down again. Secondly, we had to find out if we were able to finance the extra cost on top of the already high budget. This is a film with a budget of 6.9 million euros. So, but here we received very positive signals from the Norwegian Film Institute, and which they were covering 65% of the extra costs.
Great.
So then we found out that we could secure the financing. And finally, we had to figure out how to conduct the new shooting in a health-safe way. The management of Nordisk Film was clear that the health was the first priority. So parallel to this, the film industry in Norway had set up a committee to prepare a guideline for how we could take up the work again. So the challenge was actually to provide contaminations equipment before the startup.
Yeah, and so how many people are on the set, and how do you keep them safe?
We decided that we had to reduce the crew. But we were actually very lucky because we had rented a big house, actually an office block. And we could use the whole house because it was empty. So we could split the crew in different stores, and we could have the extras in one area and the actors in another area, and so on. So the main goal was to reduce the number of people on the film set.
Yeah. And what about the actors? Are they able to do scenes when they're, close together, or, I don't know if there's any romantic scenes. This is a war epic, maybe not. Are they able to be in close proximity to each other?
What we did, we made, find the right word here, we made a health scheme that everyone has to fill out, so that we were secure that there was no one infected at the stage where we start shooting.
Okay.
So, and we were follow up with we had special persons on the set taking care of these things. So. But it affected, of course, the shooting for us. We had to change the shooting schedule and so on.
Yeah, because I know this is a war epic in parts, and I know you're going to have some big scenes with lots of background artist extras, and you're going to do those in 2021. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. We had to split the rest of the shooting of the film in two different parts because we needed snow. Yeah. And when we started up 10 weeks after we shut down, there was no snow left. So we decided to shoot the main part of the film in the northern part of Norway and start up again in April next year.
Okay.
And that's also the big scenes with all the extras and the soldiers and everything. So what we have done now is it's smaller scenes with quite few extras and so on.
And right now, are you working in a studio, or are you on location, or a bit of both?
It's actually on location, but it's in this house that we rented. We actually built the location. Ah. So we use the house as a studio in a way.
Okay. It's lucky you have this house. It sounds like.
Yes, we were actually very lucky. But on the other hand, we had to leave the house the 1st of July.
Oh, okay.
Because they start to renovate the house. So if we didn't manage to start up again in the end of May, we couldn't actually complete the shooting in the decorations that we had spent a lot of money on.
Yeah. And one thing that a lot of people are talking about around the world is insurance. And just insurance is impossible. And how have you managed to deal with insurance?
We reported the case to our insurance company immediately, and we have followed up with documentation and further discussions on the phone. But at the end, they only cover 105,000 euro out of a loss of 1.1 million euro.
Okay, and what about the insurance for, going ahead and shooting now, and, what if your main cast gets sick and they sue you or something like that?
Actually,
maybe that's only in America where they're going to sue each other, but.
Yeah, and we had an interesting discussion with our insurance company because we signed the agreement in December before it was actually official a problem with the corona thing. And immediately when this came up, I had a discussion with the insurance company, and they said that no, we will not cover anything if you will have this problem coming. But I said that reading the insurance paper, there is nothing in this paper saying that you will not cover the problem. And they changed their mind and said it's okay. So, and they also accept now that we could prolong the agreement,
okay,
just by paying some extra money, of course.
Okay, yes. And is this an insurance company that's based in Norway, or is it an international?
English company.
English.
Yes.
Can you tell us the name?
Yes, it's Hiscox.
Okay. Just, I'm sure people tuning in might be curious to work with somebody who's got a little experience with this already.
Yes.
So I guess, it's amazing you've been able to restart, but what advice would you have for other producers who are wondering if they can restart?
If you look into how much money you have spent on the day that you have to close down, we had spent approximately 2 million euro at that stage. So for us to close the project, that would be a major loss. So for us, it was more a question of how soon could we start up in a health secure way, and how could we solve the shooting in a secure way. So my advice would be to prolong actually the shooting as long as possible. And for us, we will actually not shoot, we will not complete the shooting of the film before April, May next year. So, and then I hope that we could do it safely.
Yes. And we should say the film is planned to be released for the end of the year in 2021.
Yes, it was planned to premiere on the 25th of December 2020, but now we have to postpone it for 1 year.
Okay. Well, you're being healthy and patient, and I think a lot of people can learn from that. So thank you, Aage, for joining us today, and good luck to you and Eric as you continue to shoot the film.
Thank you.
So thank you to Aage for all that insight. But I'm delighted we've got 4 real live people here to join this discussion. So we're going to be speaking with 4 filmmakers and producers. We have Nina Laurio, producer and partner at Dionysos Films in Finland. We have Lars Bredo Rahbek, head of production at SF Studios Denmark. He is currently in the Czech Republic, where he's shooting Charlotte Seeling's Margreta, Queen of the North. And he's also got Billy August The Pact shooting now. From Iceland, we have Kristinn Thordarson, who is head of production at Truenorth. And then last but not least, from Sweden, we have Sara Young, who is a writer-director working on Most Unwanted. And as we welcome them, I would like to also remind everybody there's a Q&A button down there. If you have a question, ask it at any time. We'll try to see how much time we have for questions as we go along. So you don't have to wait till the end to ask a question if you have one. So please feel free to ask. So I would like to start with Lars. Do we see Lars? Yes, hello Lars.
Hello, Wendy.
I think you're in a trailer in the Czech Republic with a mask ready to go on.
That's true. The mask is about to go on. Yes, I'm on set at Charlotte Seeling's period movie, Margreta, Queen of the North. We're shooting 40 minutes outside Prague at a castle location. It's called Krivokat Castle. We've been here for 5 days, and it's our final days at this location. So, yeah.
Great. It's impressive. Maybe you can talk us through the decision of when you could, because you'd already started shooting.
Yes.
And then you had to stop for obvious reasons, but then how did you know when you could go back safely? And I think you're working with crew from 9 different countries, which sounds enough of a headache even without COVID. So how did you know you could restart safely now?
Well, I would say that our predicament with this movie, and I'm one of the two producers, the other one is Birgitte Skov. We're producing this movie on behalf of SF Studios in Denmark, so we're the delegate producers. But our problem is that it's actually quite a huge production for Scandinavia. Our original budget was just shy of 9 million euros. And this COVID-19 situation actually adds around 1.2 million euros for the cost of hiatus, for the cost of restarting, and for the cost of COVID precautionary measures. So it's a huge production. It's an international production where we are co-produced. Our co-producers are Filmkammeraterne in Norway. It's Kristinn, who is also here as one of the speakers today from Truenorth in Iceland. It is SF Studios in Sweden, and then it's Sirena Film in the Czech Republic. And then we have tax refund money in from the Czech Republic and Poland as well. But the hugeness actually became our problem. And the hugeness relates to the fact that doing this as an international co-production, our cast is multinational. So as you say, we have cast and crew from 9 different countries. We have from Denmark, we have from Iceland, Norway, Sweden, England, Germany, Ireland, Poland, and the Czech Republic. And that's a handful. I would say that when we stopped on the 12th of March. We were actually right at this location, also Krivoklat Castle in the Czech Republic. We had been shooting for 10 days at the Bredo studio, 9 days at the Bredo Studios in Prague. And then we have moved up here to the mountainous region and the castle region to start shooting. And then news came, which shut us down. And that news was that the Czech authorities had instituted an immediate travel ban, so you couldn't get in and you couldn't leave the country if you're a foreigner. And also there was a ban on gathering more than 10 people in the public, and that immediately shut us down. So we just shut down, and then we sent our crew and cast in 9 different directions. And then it has taken 3 months until we figured out when could we start reshooting.
You know, we heard a little bit about, you know, maybe you could talk a little bit about finances. And like you said, this was already a big production, you know, that budget increase. Did you know where you were going to get that? And has insurance been an issue for you?
Yes, insurance is a big issue. There's no insurance coverage for us. Right now, just shortly before we started shooting, actually, some opportunities were opening up that we might be able to get a COVID insurance. We haven't signed it yet, because one of the things about it is basically that to access the insurance, we will need to keep our crew and cast in almost exclusive isolation on set or at the hotel we're staying, with no permission to go out, no permission to go shopping or whatever. And you know, we are shooting until something, I think our last day of shoot is 12th of July. And we have a lot of actors we've decided to have down here on hold days. So they might be with us, but it could take for one actor 7 days before that person is shooting again. And we decided, as one of our measures for reducing the COVID risk, was not to fly people in and out. Transportation is actually where the risks are. So we have negotiated with cast and crew to stay here with us, but there will also be whole days, and staying in Prague in a hotel in a basement without windows and staying there for something like 7 days without nothing to do. Well, I know my actors, that will drive them crazy. So that's part of our problems, that even though there might be opportunities cropping up now and we're trying to push them into a realistic zone, then we might not be able to access it for this production. But we're still, it's still undecided actually. But for our extra cost of the 1.2 million, that is, we don't get a single help there. We, like with Aage, we are in negotiations, and most likely we will access 60% plus also from the Danish Film Institute. We hope our application will hit them this week. And the indications from them is definitely they will stand up for the films, not only Margrethe, Queen of the North, but also SF Studios Denmark. We are having Bille Aage shooting his drama, The Pact. So, and that's also for a cost which is close to free. How much would that be? Maybe 600,000 euros, I think. We're in deep there. So that's our situation. Then we're scrambling really to see if we can think out of the box and get money from new sources. All our wonderful financiers in my financing plan have been asked, but the Nordic Film Institute, the Swedish Film Institute, the Norwegian Film Institute, the Icelandic Film Center, all of them basically see their job as solving the problems for their own home films. And I think that's quite fair. So the task, and maybe also where we should count ourselves lucky, is that we will get a helping hand, because irrespective of the fact that SF Studios is a big company with something like 5 productions in the COVID mess, that's a huge, we don't have that deep pockets, to be honest. So it is scary figures that we're looking at.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm also wondering, just, we see your mask there.
Yes.
Just if you can tell us quite quickly, just some of the logistical changes you've made. I mean, I think you've hired a COVID expert.
Yes.
You've got different things like temperature checks and color coding. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, well, the way it works is we've really been planning this meticulously, also to figure out what day would be safe for us to restart. And we ended up on the 15th of June. So we've been going for a week now. I'm happy to say that actually some of the fears that we had that we would be delivering less pages a day and so on, we have actually, through careful planning, avoided that scenario. So we're doing the amount of pages that we should be done. And that's down to really, really good efforts by the cast, by the director, Charlotte Seeling, and her crew. So I'm happy about that. But the way the shoot works is that we work with the best pandemic and COVID-19 safety experts in Eastern Europe. We've hired them in. We work with the Czech authorities, and first of all, what we had to solve was the dilemma or the riddle of how to get people into the Czech Republic, because our main shoot is here. We're doing a little second journey shooting in Denmark and in Norway, but the whole shoot is basically in the Czech Republic. And the authorities ended up here in the Czech Republic saying that now basically they're getting out of lockdown, and they can accept business travelers, but on the condition that we can submit a COVID-19 swab test, a PCR test, and it should be negative, and it should be no less than 4 days old. So we had to figure out in 9 different countries how to access such a test. And what dawned on us was we couldn't rely on the public systems in England or in Denmark or in France, where one of our actors actually live, even though he's German. So we had to monitor these situations, and then we have to find a way to control that testing scenario, because if we weren't in control and if we couldn't get people tested within a brief spell of time, and then figure out how to get them into the Czech Republic at a time when there's still no regular flights, where we had to consider either hiring private propeller planes or driving them into cars at huge extra cost, then that was the first thing we had to solve. But everyone has gotten in, and everyone, apart from, actually, we had a little crisis. One of our lead actors actually turned positive. And then we tracked that situation and tested him again and again, and finally he tested negative. So his positivity must have been weeks back. And another actor we had to recast, because she got COVID and she's still very frail. So we recast her part. But the advantage of shooting in June was basically we could retain our crew, all of our cast, and we could be at all the locations we needed to be. And now we're here, and my everyday works this way, that when I arrive with a crew and cast on set, the first thing is a temperature measurement. We measure temperature. If it's beyond 37.5, then we take out the person and send that person for a COVID test. The result will be there within 6 hours. The next thing is that we have parted all groups into 4, and then with 2 subgroups each. We've color-coded them. They never interact. I'm in group red. That's meaning I'm with the crew, the cast, and Charlotte herself, our director. And when we are together in a group, we can take off the mask. But when other times, always we have to wear a mask. And it's special masks that we launder. We get up early morning, we launder the mask, put in, and then we iron them also because that is a disinfectant. And then we put in special 99% grade sure filters, and then they're on all the time. And then we disinfect the set, we disinfect costumes, and it's a period movie, so there's a lot of them. And of course, my predicament is it's actually quite a huge set. We have a crew of 100, and I have today it's small today because the actors and the extras are 25 to 30. Tomorrow we will have about actors and extras would amount to around 150. So there's a huge coordinating going on. It's almost like a ballet, but it works out brilliantly because we planned it and worked with experts and because of communication. So everyone knows what they need to do.
Wow, there is so much. We could talk for days and days and days about everything you've done. I just wanted to recognize that I see lots of good questions coming in for Lars, but I want to get to everybody first, and then we'll see how much time we have. So thank you, Lars, for all that so far, and hopefully we'll hear a little bit more. Amazing. I'd like to go to Finland, please, with Nina Laurio from Dionysos Films. Yeah, Nina, can you tell us about the situation in Finland? I believe you're currently shooting a film called 70 is Just a Number, is that right?
Yeah, hello everyone. In Finland, we are quite lucky at the moment because in the last 24 hours, we have had only 1 new infection in the whole country. And we are really shooting a feature film called 70 is Just a Number. It's a comedy, a warm-hearted comedy of a singer, an elderly woman who has to learn to accept her age. And also she discovers that there's no age limit for love. So it's a funny, warm-hearted story. And as you can see from the name that we have a senior actress involved. So that's the one thing we had to consider. We started the shooting in early March, and we had 2 periods in this shooting periods in this film, which is lucky because we could make the winter scenes before the lockdown. And during that days, we shooted romantic scenes. We managed to do them away. We didn't know the lockdown coming, so we just planned to do them then. And also we had some shootings in senior houses where there were a lot of old people, and we managed to do them. And then there was lockdown, but we were we had to pause in the shootings. We planned to start in early May, but because of the COVID, we had to postpone the shootings. And when our government loosened the restrictions and the lockdown, we made a risk analysis that when could we start, and we decided to start in the late May. And now we have only 4 days to go, so I'm very hopeful that we can manage to make this happily.
Congratulations, only 4 days. That's pretty amazing. Are there official government guidelines you have to now hit with film, or is it just more what you think on a set is sort of case by case basis? So how have you decided what is safe and not?
Of course, we looked at numbers about the infections and how many people are allowed to work together, and all those kind of things. What they were kind of general rules what our government said, but also we had our own guidelines in film industry in Finland, how to make it in the most safe way. And we made instructions based on our government rules and the film industry rules. We also looked at Norwegian guidelines and whatever there was, and made our own book of safety rules. And they are quite simple, but there are many of them.
what would you say, I know we're all trying to be positive, but what's been the biggest headache? I mean, shooting with an elderly woman at a time when most elderly people are not even leaving their houses, you know. But what have been the sort of headaches that you've had to get to grips with?
Well, of course, the
biggest, maybe not headaches. We can say challenges to be nicer.
Well, of course, the biggest challenge is to keep the set and environment safe so that we could eliminate the risk of the infections, because that's the biggest risk, that somebody gets sick and whole crew have to be in the quarantine. That would be a huge damage. But how to do it is we don't shoot in Helsinki, which was the most infected town in Finland. We shoot outside of Helsinki, which has had all the time very low numbers. So that was a good thing. But we have partly a crew from Helsinki and partly from that town. And of course, we don't know what people do in their spare time, but we believe that the people are wise not to go anywhere. Of course, they couldn't go because there was a lockdown. Also, they couldn't travel outside Finland. But to keep it safe, so that every time, every day, you have to look the numbers and look what are the risks. And also, we had to plan how to shoot, how to make changes if we are shooting inside in a very small place. How can we make it safe? How can we rotate the crew so that everybody is not on the set at the same time? So I think the assistant director had to do a lot of thinking, and also the scheduling today, how we can do it during that day. We also had to change some locations because we were to go to the senior house again, and we couldn't, of course. And we had a big music hall scenes. We couldn't go there because it's shut down. We have to make it in a studio, and we cannot put 300 people in there. So we have to put 20 people in there and replace them, and then put digitally more people in there. So luckily we have this digital technique today, so we can make something out of it.
It's impressive what you've been able to do. And again, I think we'll probably have some more questions for you at the end, but thanks for that so far. And yeah, good luck with those last 4 days.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yes. Why don't we go to Sweden next with Sara? And Sara, maybe you can tell us how the pandemic impacted the shoot for Most Unwanted, or how far along were you? And
we actually finished to film our filming, which is really nice. And I can really relate to a lot of the things that Nina said about constantly rearranging, being very, very flexible, changing locations.
When did the shoot end? Was it when COVID had started a bit, or?
We started right in the beginning of March, right when the epidemic started. But you know, Sweden had some other restrictions.
Yeah.
So our government has been a bit looser than the other countries.
Yeah.
So we kept all the restrictions, but still every day you wouldn't know if we were going to have a lockdown. You just had to see what the government decided. So in the mornings, we didn't even know if we could continue.
Wow.
So it's quite hard and stressful, especially stressful. I think we used a lot of hand sanitizers because this was before you could do the testings and you didn't even know. And also the team was very young. Everybody in the team, I'm the oldest one and I'm 45. So we had a very young team, low budget, not very many people in the team. So that's basically, I guess, how we managed, because halfway in, half of the team got corona. So we did get, I know, the main actor was sick, the scenographer, and we had to pause a couple of days, but then we just rearranged and the people that...
I mean, I'm very curious about that. I mean, how, while you've got an active shoot going on and some of your lead cast or crew gets COVID, how long did you have to shut down, and how did you keep there weren't that many tests? Did you take their temperature? What were you doing?
No, we just figured that that's what they had because they had high fever and they lost their sense of taste. And so we didn't really know because this was before nobody knew what was going on, but we were just filming. So we rearranged and just took other scenes and just flexibility beyond.
And how big was your cast and crew? This is a sort of more smaller production, right?
Yeah, this is a low budget action comedy, and we were only about 12, 15 people in the cast or in the crew, and then the cast was pretty small as well. We had some bigger scenes, but then we just invited all of our extras, our family, because you just joined whoever you were close to. Those were the ones that could come and film.
Wow. This is like the DIY approach to like, oh my gosh, we have to do this safely, but let's get it done.
I know. It felt like we were doing a guerrilla movie. It was very exciting, but very extremely stressful. And I think for me as a director, the most stressful part is the part where you couldn't go close to each other and you have to give directions from a distance. And I mean, if you could feel that somebody was stressed out, I couldn't put like a hand on somebody's shoulder because we were just standing like, okay, can you be really sad? But you were still in 2 meters distance when you wanted to be close. And sometimes people in the set, they need a hug just because they're stressed out. And I think that's the worst part, that I really miss just touching people, not inappropriate, of course, but just being able to put a hand on somebody's shoulder. But there were some advantages. All the actors were free. We could get big names to do cameos. You could call, and as soon as we had to change days, I was like, what do you do on Thursday? We'll film on Thursday. Nobody had any plans. Everybody was at home and we're just excited to get out of the house for some filming. We had one older actress. Most of the actors and actresses were very young, and the team was young as well. And she was really scared, which was understandable. But we really wanted her, so we had to reshoot. She was going to sit together with a younger girl in a car, but we had to do it separately. So she was by herself, and then the younger one. So I guess that's the only time it really affected the acting or being on set. Well, it's been exciting.
Did your budget go up? I mean, even just the cost of hand sanitizer, you know, how did you have to adjust to the new reality, and how did you pay for that?
The Swedish Film Institute, since most of the productions were postponed or canceled, they did actually, I don't know, I'm not the budget person, but I know that we got compensated. So I think that we were on budget, and it's a low budget. But as far as I know, they were really, I mean, willing to help us and try to get the movie done. And I know we only I think 3 or 4 days we had to pause. Otherwise, we just rearranged, and let's shoot this one instead. It was every day. You had no idea what we're going to do. And locations, they changed, of course. But the good thing, I mean, they realized this is what's going to happen. So there was no hard feelings. Nobody got upset over constantly changing plans. But oh man, it was exhausting.
The indie spirit to keep going.
Yeah. But it's a fun movie, so I'm happy that we did it.
Yeah. Is it impacting how you're doing post? Or I guess an editor can be in an office anyway.
Yeah, and he edited while we were shooting, so he was constantly editing. So the editing is done. It's almost all done now. We're just going to do grade and sound. And he's just been sitting by himself in his room, so he was safe from infections.
Okay, well, good luck finishing the rest. And we might come back to you with some more specific questions, but I wanted to go to Iceland now with Kristinn Thordarson, who works at Truenorth, one of the big production service companies and producers.
Hello there.
And, you know, we've all been impressed at what Iceland has been able to do. I mean, things are shooting. You know, you have had your own prime minister as, you know, dedicated to the TV and film industry there and helped with guidelines. So, yeah, can you tell us what's, I guess, the current situation that it's safe to shoot, but is it safe to come in, or what's the quarantine situation like?
Well, thanks for having me, and I can pretty much sort of echo, especially what Lars said about, you know, how they set up the shoot there. But as of today, the country is open as of June 15th. What the government decided to do is they test everybody coming into the country at the airport. And since, yeah, it's been open now for a week, and it's been over 4,000 people that have come in, and only 3 have been infected with COVID, and they go into quarantine. And we have a hotel for tourists, and if you live here, obviously you go straight home. So there hasn't been a lot of additional infections in terms of visitors. However, Iceland was quite successful in fighting the virus, and most of May we hardly had any new cases. And so as of end of May, I think, bars are open, restaurants are open, except everything closed at 11, which is very unusual in Iceland. So everybody had to go home at 11, which, like, you know, took a while for Icelanders to get used to that. I think there's probably a lot of parties at home instead. So, but other than that, everything is pretty normal. I mean, I took a walk downtown yesterday. It was a sunny, warm day, and it was just full with people, and you know, enjoying the good weather in the summer.
Wonderful. And I know Baltasar Kormakor has been shooting his Netflix series Katla.
Yeah.
From, you know, for a while now, he was able to restart, and, you know, it helps he owns his own studio. We're not all so lucky. But are there things that have worked on that set that you, because I know you were involved as part of the Producers Association alongside the Icelandic Film Commission to look at guidelines. Are there things that, you know, is it exactly what we've been hearing from the others, you know, testing and masks?
Yeah, pretty much. Lars described it really well. What they did, I mean, Icelanders tend to do that. We tend to just like forge ahead, and, like, you know, nothing kind of stops us. So Baltasar and Magnus and the guys at Reykjavik Studios, they basically pressed on with Netflix to start shooting again, and they started right after Easter break, I think. And at that time, only 20 people could gather in Iceland, and that was sort of the height of the pandemic for us. So they did the same thing. They were color, you know, the crew was split up in different colors. You know, it was completely restricted, you know, hair and makeup. Only 20 people around the camera. Everybody tested before they got in terms of fever, etc., and extra personnel on set. And there was one person just sort of reminding everybody constantly, keep apart. And because you forget, I mean, it's like even if you have masks and everything on. But then as we got further, and they got further into the production, and restrictions were lifted in Iceland, you know, they could lift the restrictions as well. And today, I mean, they still have, I mean, catering is different. It's not like you know, it's everything is individualized. It's not, you know, you can't put your hand in anything and grab something. But you know, people keep apart. They're still checked in the morning, but not as vigorously as before. So it's getting more to normal. But they still have special people and personnel's checking on everyone. And yeah, and what we did actually with a few producers and film commissioner Einar, early May, we came up with sort of guidelines that we obviously used guidelines from elsewhere, also how they had been doing at Katla. And that was because we managed to get it was called B quarantine on May 15th. So at that point, we could get actually productions coming into the country, and they could work, and they didn't have to go into quarantine. They could go directly to work. That lasted 4 weeks, and then after June 15th, obviously we don't need that. But it's been working very well, and Icelanders in general have been very, which is often unusual with Icelanders, We don't always do that, but we've actually followed the rules and the recommendations that our medical team has suggested, and I think that's been a big part of how successful we managed to fight back. So we can sometimes behave.
Okay, the Vikings are behaving themselves. I'm glad.
Sometimes, yeah. Well, it's 2020. I mean, it's about time, right?
Iceland is a great filming destination for also the big inward investment shoots. Do you have any indication yet if some of the big Hollywood films might want to come there later this year? That maybe otherwise are not going to be able to shoot in other parts of the world, or that were maybe considering Iceland but are moving that up, or when do you think the big films are going to come in?
We have one confirmed already in the fall. I can't tell at the moment. We have two other projects that I would think they will come, but it's still not certain. And then there are a couple of smaller projects that are coming as well. So we immediately, when we started shooting and we got the news that Netflix was shooting only in Iceland and South Korea, that was a huge advantage when it came to foreign productions. As I think you mentioned before with Aage, there's an insurance issue that they're obviously solving in the States, because the States are, unique in that sense. But obviously they're getting around that because, they have to figure out a way to let everybody shoot, because it's not like one country shut off and, had a volcanic eruption or something. It's the entire world. So there's no income for anyone if the insurance companies don't figure it out. So yeah, we've had, it's been, the phone has been sort of ringing off the hook since spring in terms of foreign production. So we're definitely seeing a huge spike upwards in interest.
Great. I'm getting, there's lots of questions coming in, and a lot of them, unsurprisingly, are about money and budgets. So I'd like to open it up to the whole gang, if we can see everybody again, and just to see who wants to talk about this is, can anybody, Maya Brontos is asking, can somebody estimate a percentage of the overall budget that might be what these extra costs look like? And that's including quarantine, COVID tests, disinfecting, extra crew, VFX to cover up for lack of extra safety equipment. I think that's probably going to vary a little bit film by film, but does anybody want to say how much? Is this an extra 10% of a budget?
Well, I can say a bit. If you look at our costs, so we're in deep with 1.2 million out of a budget of just about 9. So that's up to like 12, 13%. But I think it's difficult. I think each and every production is its own. It has its own characteristics, and you can hear that through the presenters here today. So I think you just have to sit down and work through it. And the first place to start is really to hire safety experts and go through down your shooting plans. We aimed simply not to change a thing. We needed to deliver a grand movie. It's the biggest budget movie that a Nordic female director has ever done, and we're at the highest budget level in Denmark. So I had 3 tasks to consider. One was to keep the cast and the crew safe. The other one is to keep investors' money safe. And the third thing is always to navigate and consider the human factor. So these 3 things are so important to figure out. And our aim was we need to deliver what I promised to deliver to all these people. We've been talking about this movie for 5 years, building the financing. But it's also about the backup plans. I think one thing is whether it's 10 or 12%, that's one thing, and you have to figure out how can you raise that, or can you pay that yourself, or do you have sources? But the next thing is your backup plans, and none of us have talked about that, but we have backup plans for almost every incident of the crew situations. If the DOP falls and suddenly is COVID positive, we have a substitute DOP which we can fly in from Denmark or drive in from Denmark. And then we have a situation for those 48 hours, it probably needs to get that person in. Then the B photo will step up and handle it. And the same thing with the director, actually. We have had discussions with her as to if she ends up in hospital, can she Zoom direct? Can she direct her crew from a respirator at hospital? And that is actually a thing we are considering, but we also have a director on call for the situation that Charlotte cannot direct. But where we are really scared and where we don't have solution, where we just have to be brave, and you are brave by minimizing every risk you can. That is what happens to if one of the lead actors goes down. That's really difficult when you have a lead actress like we have with Trine Dyrholm playing the Queen of Scandinavia. You know, if she is not there, how do we do it? There's very little room for maneuvering, and that we can't solve. But the money will be very individual. For us, it was 12-13%, but we are really playing safe because this is the biggest movie we've seen out of our region, and it cannot go wrong again.
Thank you, Lars. Anybody else want to talk? I mean, Sara, you were on a much smaller scale.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was just listening, and I wish that we had that kind of possibilities. Sounds amazing. Because we try to do the same, but with really small, I mean, the smallest means that you could possibly think of, but just changing, okay, you are now our stenographer, even though you were just the intern 2 days ago. So that's the way the low budget movies work.
What about you, Nina? How do you think, are you planning anything else to shoot this year? And do you factor in 10% more, or what are you thinking?
I think the extra costs are very, very moderate. They might be some 5% at the moment. So of course we have these 4 days to go, so you never know. But and they are mostly because of the staff. We had to be longer at the work when we had to postpone the production, and also the location shooting doing again, and also these kind of safety measurements and materials we have to buy. But we are hoping that our Film Foundation will find a way to support these extra costs. Hopefully they will, but at this point they seem to be quite moderate.
Lars, back to you.
Yes, I saw a question on the Q&A about the single individual biggest cost, what that was. And I think, you know, for us, it was actually the testing. So we are very rigid on testing. And because we are the first foreign production shooting in the Czech Republic, then we're pioneers. All eyes are on us. So that cost of accessing COVID tests in 9 different countries and continuing testing on a weekly basis here in the Czech Republic to monitor the situation, that is phenomenal. But I think these costs will change because now all countries are getting in the mode of how to facilitate testing. And also transportation was a huge cost because we are driving people in from London, you know, and that takes 2 Czech drivers, you know, so that you can drive 18 hours from London and into Prague, or 16 hours or whatever it is. And so it's costly. And we also hired on a few occasions a small plane when we had 7 actors in one go to bring them down. That was more cost efficient. But these things will come down when the planes get back in the air. Then that cost will minimize the whole thing. And if I look at Bille August, who's now shooting a wonderful drama in Denmark for us, The Pact, then Bille is not an international production. It's at international quality level, but it's a Danish crew. It's a Danish cast. There's no flights involved, and it's a more controllable environment. So they have, on Bille's film, we have less cost as such. That doesn't mean to say that we don't need to go that many miles extra to keep everyone safe and to ensure that the production isn't stopped. That's what it's all about.
Great. And Kristinn, just in terms of budgets or money again, is there a template that you're thinking it's 10% more right now, or is it not quite that simple?
Yeah, I think it varies from production to production. At the moment, I mean, we were not shooting anything at Truenorth, so except obviously working with Lars on Margaret, and he knows everything there. And so I've been following that, but nothing here in Iceland. So, but I would, 5 to 10% is probably something that everybody's looking at. But I think it varies from production to production. But I would, I agree with all the testing and the extra people on set and all the additional steps you need to take when you have a big group of 50 plus or 100 people. Inevitably, that's where it's gonna go. So yeah, but there's nothing. I don't have any specific number.
Well, it's been really fascinating. Lars, you said, this is pioneering work, and it is. You're all pioneers, because nobody's ever done this before. And it's, I think, on behalf of the rest of the world, seeing what's been starting again in the Nordic region has been really encouraging, and to see that you're doing it safely. So thanks, everybody, from the biggest budget to small crew using extra hand sanitizer. We've heard some great case studies today. Some people are asking in the Q&A for links to different rules and things, and I think we will post a recap of this, and I can include some links in there for people who want to see those. But I really want to thank all you speakers for fighting the good fight to keep film alive, and for joining us today. Thanks so much for the audience to be here. On behalf of all the colleagues at Scandinavian Films, we're really chuffed to see so many people tuning in. I will remind you, we've got 4 more talks this week, all free, all on Zoom, don't need a Marche badge, so come on by for those. If you can look at each institute's website to see the schedule and how to register, or you can search for Scandinavian Films on Facebook. So thanks once again, everybody, and we hope to re-see the audience, and good luck finishing all these films. Can't wait to see them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.